Ghost of Tsushima is out now exclusively for the PlayStation 4. A PS4 key was provided by Sony for the purposes of this review. This review was originally written by my colleague Emil, who you can check out in the description down below. Back in 2007, it took around 2 days from the release of Assassin's Creed for people to start speculating about a sequel set in feudal Japan. After all, ninjas are arguably the world's most famous assassins. Ubisoft proved unwilling to make such an obvious move, and now it's fallen to developers Sucker Punch to deliver open-world ninja action in Ghost of Tsushima instead. It's far from a derivative clone, however, and Ghost not only delivers stealthy ninja deaths, but also some robust and arguably more satisfying samurai action. Indeed, compared to many other open-world games, Ghost of Tsushima's sword fights are some of the best out there. That's not to say the game is without problems, mostly from the way it depicts Japanese history and culture, but we'll get to that later. The events of the game take place in 13th century Japan. You play as Jin Sakai, a young samurai lord who has the unfortunate task of defending the island of Tsushima from Mongol invaders. Things don't go very well, as it turns out those pesky Mongols don't fight according to samurai traditions, and Jin wakes up as one of the only survivors of the first battle. This sets him on a course that will force him to bend and break the samurai code that he swore to uphold. As such behaviour is abhorrent to the samurai, a lot of the story deals with Jin struggling with his loyalty to tradition. Mechanically, this means we have access to some awesome ninja tools, like smoke bombs, kunai daggers, and grappling hooks on our journey. Ninja-ing around in Ghost of Tsushima is quite fun, and I especially enjoy how kinetic the abilities are. Bombs and kunai pack a punch, and not only damage your enemies, but also leave them stunned and sometimes scared, which makes cutting them down with your sword that much easier, and more fun. Otherwise, the stealth is similar to what we have played in the Assassin's Creed series, although probably a tad less acrobatic. You can climb up on cliffs and houses, but not scale sheer walls or big monuments. You will, however, stick to shadows, crawl under buildings, hide in tall grass, and slit people's throats. It's good fun, as weird as that is to say, though perhaps a bit too similar to other games to feel like truly fresh. The bombs and ninja tools help mitigate this, but don't quite elevate the stealth above the competition. Stealth isn't actually the strongest jewel in Tsushima's crown though. While playing as a sneaky ninja is fun, it pales in comparison to the treatment Tsushima gives to the clashing of swords. It's a much more active and impactful system than pretty much any other melee-centric open-world game out there. The fighting in Tsushima has an emphasis on restraint and observing your opponents. It's usually better to react to an enemy's attacks than swinging wildly at them. Almost all sword fights in the game have the potential of recreating your favourite moments in any given samurai film. Even more so if you make use of the fantastic standoff mechanic. When approaching a group of enemies, you can almost always press up on the D-pad to issue a challenge to your foes. This makes the bravest or dumbest opponent come forward and a mini duel plays out. If you time your attack correctly and don't fall for any feints or tricks, you'll cut him down in one fluid motion. It can also be upgraded to murder even more enemies after you vivisect the first. It's so damn cool that I often found myself in trouble since I opted for the standoffs instead of engaging with the stealth. That said, the combat in Tsushima really comes into its own once you have unlocked a few abilities and can take advantage of both the ninja and samurai skill sets. Say you challenge a garrison to a duel, slay the first fool, and then dispatches 2 pals who come running in a standoff. Now the rest of the mob is rushing you, but you flick away a few kunai to stun and hurt them. Leap into the middle of the group, slashing as you go, and just as they recover from the initial barrage, you detonate a smoke bomb and take care of the rest. If there are any stragglers left after this, they can usually be mopped up with some good old-fashioned sword work. It's an awesome dance of death, and while it might not have the same finesse and difficulty as, say, Sekiro, it's mighty fun to play around with. Aside from cutting down fools, a good deal of your time in Tsushima will be spent traversing the stunning landscape, solving various issues and finding collectibles. Again, anyone who has played an Assassin's Creed game will immediately feel at home in Ghost of Tsushima. The map is full of question marks, quests, and icons to go and check out. Like everything in the game, these side activities all come from one samurai movie or another. There are duels to fight, fox shrines to venerate, and haiku to ponder. Each one of them rewards you with some bonus resources or increases your stats, and are often worth seeking out. But make no mistake, it is one of those open world games in which you almost have a checklist to fulfill in each area. However, and this is how it really helps itself stand out from everything else, the way Ghost of Tsushima presents this checklist is truly spectacular. They have managed to completely remove the minimap from the game, and it makes a huge difference in how exploration works. Instead of the map, the world around you is hinting to where you should go. The most prominent of these hints is the wind. Set a destination on the map menu and the wind will blow in the general direction that you have to go. If you are lost, you can just swipe up on DualShock 4's touchpad and a strong gust will show you the way. Aside from the wind, foxes will guide you to Inari shrines and yellow songbirds will show you the way to some secret or hidden thing. It works surprisingly well, and I have only occasionally had trouble finding the right set of tracks or something the game wants me to follow. Those issues are few and far between, however, and I gladly make the trade to lose the minimap. As you don't have to stare at your minimap all the time, it allows you to truly soak in the game's incredible landscape. Ghost of Tsushima is easily one of the most striking looking games I have ever played on any platform. Almost every single angle and place in the game is worthy of a postcard. A lot of this is achieved through the amazing use of coloured lighting and HDR. Going through a bamboo grove will make the greens and the shadows bleed over to Jin and his swords, giving them a greenish tint. Likewise, riding through a forest full of autumnal leaves will cast the scene in yellows and reds. Combine this with an equally impressive weather system and it becomes just jaw-dropping. Not since The Witcher 3 have I ridden through mistier and more windswept landscapes. With all this eye candy, you might suspect that the game would run less than optimally on the good old stock PS4, but Ghost of Tsushima runs surprisingly well on the machine. There are a few dips in frame rate here and there, yeah, but for the most part everything just hums along nicely. I was especially impressed by the short load times and the snappy fast travel. These days it's increasingly rare to be impressed by those things in a console game. Where Ghost of Tsushima falters the most is sadly in the ways it deals with Japanese history and culture at large. Sure, the game wears its samurai movie and period drama influences on its sleeve. They even went so far as to name a black and white mode in the game after Kurosawa. Sadly though, it's mostly just skin deep. While every single place in Tsushima looks gorgeous, nowhere feels like a real and lived in place. It's not Japan you play in, it's Kurosawa-land. Duels to the death are on your right and the haiku lodges to the left, and do remember to pick up a straw hat from the gift shop. This surface level treatment also extends to the historical period in which the game is set. Very little in Tsushima is historically accurate for the period in any way. It's an amalgamation of different eras and modes of thought. The code Jin is so concerned about betraying hasn't even been invented yet and won't be for another 300 years. Likewise, the samurai and ninja as depicted here are at least a couple centuries early. The voice work though is excellent for the most part. I played the game in Japanese, and while the voices are great, it's painfully clear that lip sync animations weren't changed from the English version. Playing Ghost of Tsushima in Japanese is essentially like watching a dubbed movie. It's not a major thing, but again, given the setting and movie aesthetics the game is going for, I wish some more care had been taken. Going forward, as visual fidelity improves, I suppose this will become an issue we will have to live with, as redoing every animation for localization is probably unrealistic. While the overall story and the main thrust of the game has its issues, Ghost of Tsushima is blessed with some truly great tales and side stories. They are not only more satisfying and have better writing, but they also allowed me to forget the setting and the time period it's supposed to take place in. While helping an archery teacher find his murderous runaway student, I could ignore the historical fallacies more and imagine we were in the much later Sengoku or Edo period, which fits much better with the samurai motif. It's also in these stories you will meet the most interesting characters. The archery teacher is something of an eccentric, and one story even has you helping a female samurai avenge her butchered grandchildren. Most of these tales and side quests are quite entertaining, and some, like the female samurai, highlight things I have seldom seen in Western media concerning the samurai or Japanese history at large. Despite some shortcomings, Ghost of Tsushima is still a sublime game full of impressive moments and features. The combat is incredibly fun, every single duel and standoff making you feel like you're in a badass samurai movie. Likewise, all the ninja tools at your disposal are satisfying to use. The game is also a tour de force in impressive visuals and incredible landscapes that will have your jaw drop. In fact, the game is so beautiful it had me constantly using the robust photo mode, something I seldom do in games. Your enjoyment of Ghost of Tsushima will, in the end, come down to how much you enjoy open world games and how much you know about or value the Japanese history and culture. If you can stomach the inaccuracies and love having a big map to find collectibles in, then welcome. Kurosawa-land is open and waiting for you, samurai. 8.5 out of 10. Ghost of Tsushima is, despite some minor blemishes, an impressively sharp swan song for the PlayStation 4. We hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, be sure to let us know down in the comments below. Do the like, all the stuff, and thank you for watching. And I hope you have just a lovely day. Have a lovely day, okay?